My son is like a cancerous tumor. I would have preferred to give birth to a little dog. Those are the actual words Brigitte Bardot wrote about her own child. The same woman was convicted 6 times for inciting racial hatred. But this is the woman the world remembers, the icon, the sex symbol, the goddess of liberation. So what the hell happened? Because the truth about Brigitte Bardot is so much darker than anyone wants to admit. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at her the same way again. I'm going to tell you 3 things about Bardot that will blow your mind. But first, you need to understand where this all started. And trust me, you need to stay until the end because the final revelation is the most disturbing. First, the secret trauma that created Brigitte Bardot. And I'm talking about whippings, suicide attempts, and being drugged on set. Second, the son she destroyed. And I mean literally called him a tumor and turned away when he begged to stay with her at 12 years old. And third, the transformation that nobody saw coming. How the symbol of freedom became a convicted hate criminal who the far right claimed as their icon. This isn't a hit piece. This is the story they never told you. Let's get into it. 1934, Paris. Everyone thinks Brigitte Bardot was born with a silver spoon. Rich family, beautiful face, destined for stardom. Wrong, her childhood was a nightmare disguised as privilege. Her father wasn't just strict. He was a tyrant. Want to know how bad? When young Brigitte and her sister accidentally broke a vase, their father gave them 20 lashes, with a whip, 20 times, for breaking a vase. She wasn't allowed friends he didn't approve of. She couldn't express emotions. Everything was control, control, control. Years later, she described feeling like a prisoner in her own home. So at 18, she did what a lot of abuse victims do. She ran straight into the arms of someone who seemed like a savior. Director Roger Vadim. They got married. She thought she was escaping. She had no idea she was jumping from one cage into a bigger, more public cage. Vadim didn't see Brigitte. He saw a product, a fantasy he could sell to the world. And in 1956, he directed her in And God Created Woman. The film was scandalous, erotic, and it made Bardot a global sensation overnight. But here's what nobody tells you about those early films. While shooting La Vérité in 1960, Bardot later revealed that the director gave her sleeping pills without her full consent to make her look drowsy on camera. Let that sink in. She was drugged to perform, the way a man wanted her to perform. The symbol of sexual liberation was being controlled and drugged by the men who created her image. And it gets worse. Much worse. By the late 50s and 60s, Bardot was everywhere. She was the fantasy. Barefoot, braless, unapologetic about her sexuality. She received 7,000 marriage proposals. The world worshipped her. But behind the cameras, Brigitte Bardot was trying to kill herself. Multiple times throughout her life, she attempted suicide. After giving birth in 1960, suicide attempt. On the eve of her 49th birthday in 1983, another attempt. And the reason for that 1960 attempt? That brings us to the most disturbing part of this story. Okay, this is where things get really dark. So if you're not already subscribed, hit that button now because this channel doesn't shy away from the uncomfortable truth. January 1960. Brigitte Bardot gives birth to a son, Nicolas Jacques Charrier. She didn't want him, and she never, ever pretended otherwise. In her memoir, she wrote this: her son was like a cancerous tumor. She said she would have preferred to give birth to a little dog. I want you to imagine being that child. Imagine growing up and reading that your mother, the woman the entire world desired, wished you were a dog instead. But it gets even worse than the words. It's the actions. Bardot refused custody of Nicolas. She didn't want him around. He was raised by his father and grandmother. When Nicolas was 12 years old, he asked his mother if he could stay with her. She said no. She turned her own child away. Now, here's where this gets really messed up. Nicolas grew up watching the entire world worship his mother. Millions of people wanted just a moment of her attention, but he couldn't have it. The woman who symbolized love and passion had none for her own son. As an adult, the pain was still so raw that in 1997, Nicolas sued his mother. Why? Because she published more cruel remarks about him in her autobiography. The courts actually had to order sections of the book to be censored. Think about that. The courts had to legally protect a grown man from his mother's public cruelty. Now look, we need to talk about context for a second. Bardot had severe postpartum depression in 1960, which barely anyone understood back then. She also came from horrific childhood trauma herself. Hurt people hurt people. That's real, but, and this is important, understanding the cause doesn't erase the damage. Nicholas was an innocent child. He didn't ask to be born. He didn't deserve to be called a tumor. He didn't deserve to be rejected over and over and over again. Bardot made those choices. She published those words. She turned him away. That's not just mental illness, that's cruelty. And this pattern of cruelty, it was just getting started. Because after she walked away from acting in 1973, something happened to Brigitte Bardot. Something nobody saw coming. 1973, peak of her fame. Brigitte Bardot walks away from cinema completely. She retreats to her estate in Saint-Tropez and dedicates her life to animal welfare. And honestly, the animal stuff is legitimate. She founded an organization that's done real good fighting against fur, animal testing, and cruelty. If the story ended there, we could say she found redemption. But that's not where the story ends. Something twisted inside Bardot during those years of isolation, and what came out was shocking. She started making inflammatory statements about immigrants, specifically Muslim immigrants. She said France was being invaded, that the country was being overrun by people who didn't belong. And it wasn't just talk. Between 1997 and 2022, Brigitte Bardot was convicted 6 times by French courts for inciting racial hatred. She wasn't just being politically incorrect, she was being prosecuted. Repeatedly. In 2022, just 3 years ago at age 87, she was fined 40,000 euros. Want to know what she said? She called people from the French island of Réunion degenerates, with savage genes who should stay on their island. These are direct quotes from the woman who once symbolized freedom and love. And it doesn't stop there. She openly supported France's far-right National Front Party. She supported Jean-Marie Le Pen, a politician known for Holocaust denialism and extreme nationalism. She later supported his daughter, Marine Le Pen. She married Bernard Dormal, who was literally an advisor to the National Front. The sex symbol of liberation became a far-right icon. But here's the question nobody's asking. How? How does that even happen? How does someone go from representing freedom to representing exclusion and hatred? Okay, let's piece this together. Because this isn't just about Brigitte Bardot. This is about what happens when trauma never gets healed. Bardot's father was controlling, rigid, fearful of outsiders. He demanded perfection and punished deviation. That's the environment she grew up in. As an adult, Bardot never actually healed from that. We made her a legend. But legends aren't real. They're just broken people we decided to worship. Drop a comment if this changed how you see her. Subscribe for more uncomfortable truths. See you next time.